Are good leaders born, or are they made? What we know is that it takes all kinds of experiences to lead, especially in the social sector. Welcome to the Ripple Effect. I'm Caroline Broadhurst, Deputy Chief Exec at the Rank Foundation. In this series, I'll be speaking with leaders from across the UK, learning what led them to work in the social sector and what shaped them into the inspiring leaders they are today. In this episode, I had a chat with Emma Pears, founder and Chief Officer of Selfa, an independent children's charity based in Skipton in North Yorkshire. Emma is also a member of the Rank Leaders Action Group, and we recorded this episode before our networking conference when Emma received the Rank Memorial Award.
So I was born in Belfast in 1975, and my mum was a teacher and my dad was a builder, and there was just me and my sister. And I think growing up in Belfast at that time, I wasn't aware until I was an adult that things were really that different for children in other parts of the world. And I suppose a real formative moment for me was when I was 16. I went on something called the Ulster Project, which was a cross-community scheme where 10 Catholics and 10 Protestants were taken for a month in the summer holidays to live with families in America. And I think at the time we were told that we were going to probably be the leaders of the future. And I think that that really helped shape the way I thought about the world. There was a lot of restorative work going on between us that we didn't even realise at the time to try and bring us all together. And that was a lot of fun. But also, I think there was a lot of learning in there for us. I think that growing up in Belfast was very, very influential on who I wanted to be as a person. I quite often refer to myself as a compulsive helper. And I think that whenever you grow up in a place where there's, a minority who aren't working towards peace, you want to be on the side of the peacemakers and the helpers. And I certainly did that and was brought up to work in that way, really, around being a kind of person who led and wanted to be a real change maker.
Right, a compulsive helper. I'm sure that resonates with many in the social sector. But can you tell us where that came from, what it means to you?
Indeed. So I think I first heard Bob Mortimer, the comedian, refer to himself as a compulsive helper. And that really resonated with me because I just thought, yeah, I'm very much like that. I'm the kind of person who thinks, what more can I do and how can I help? Right through from being mummy's little helper to being the CEO of a small charity. I think that that's really developed who I am as a person, wanting to do more. And I think that's how we work at Selfa Children's Charity. We try and make sure that we can just go that extra mile and go that extra step. And I think that that's when I'm at my happiest, is when I'm serving other people, really.
Tell me about Selfa. Who are you?
So I set up Selfa about 17 years ago now, and at the time I could see that there was a real gap in provision for children and young people who were experiencing vulnerabilities, as well as disabled children and those who had emotional and behavioural support needs. And I came together with some parents and some teachers, head teachers, and we had a meeting, and I was just like, you know what, we could do a bit more if we set up a charity. I've been on a course and I think I know how to do it. And they were like, yep, no problem. We'll be your trustees. And we're based in Skipton in North Yorkshire, just on the edge of the Yorkshire Dales. We support children and young people and their families throughout times of vulnerability in their lives. So we run groups for children who have profound and multiple disabilities. We also have mental health support that we offer both in schools and in community settings. We do a range of after-school groups to support emotional health, well-being, esteem, independence, all those skills that children need to go throughout their whole life. So now today we support over 500 children and young people every year and their families, and we have 150 children come through our doors every week.
Yeah, so it sounds like you showed leadership qualities early on. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Well, I would say that there were a lot of things that didn't go too well whenever I was young, and those are probably the things that I learnt from most. My family setup was, quite a difficult one. My dad was an alcoholic, and that really influenced a lot of what we went through. There were good times and then there were bad times, and that really made that there were a lot of different things going on, a lot of uncertainty for us as children. But my mum always pushed that us girls would have an education, and I didn't realise until adulthood how important that was. And I didn't do great at school. I didn't get my 11 plus. I got 3 Ds at A level and just managed to get on an HND course. But I think throughout it all, although I maybe wasn't the most academic person in the world, I had other qualities that others could see in me and nurtured in me really throughout my schooling, and those are the kind of softer skills maybe that people would say. So being somebody who can see the bigger picture, who likes to bring people along with them and get people on board, and who can win people over hopefully. I'd like to think I can do that as well as learning along the way to be a good listener. I think that's been really important on my leadership journey as well.
And then you moved to England. Here you are. How did things change for you?
I moved here in 1999, so quite a while ago, just before the millennium, to work for a national charity. And I absolutely loved working for them. But I felt that there was a lot more that I could do if I worked at a local level. So I then got a job in local government, which I was awful at. I really was a square peg in a round hole. And I think I managed to keep in that job for about 18 months, not really knowing what I was doing, because I managed to win people over. But then I realised it was time for me to move on. And I worked in education for a bit. I worked as an extended schools coordinator for the local authority. And I really loved that job and felt that I was making a difference. But I did also feel that there were limitations working for local government, that I wasn't able to meet the need where it was. So there was a lot of red tape. And whilst doing that role, I set up Selfa. There were a small group of us who came together to do that. We had a dream, really, and a cheque for £500. And our kind of thinking was, well, we could do more good if we had more money. And I don't think we ever imagined that it would be an organisation that supports over 600 children and families a year and has an income of $500,000 now.
And tell me a bit more about the dream, that light bulb moment for Selfa. What happened?
I sometimes joke and say that Selfa's my middle child. So I have 2 children myself. And I think when they came into the world, I realised how much that I could learn from children as well. Children and young people are definitely my biggest teachers. And I could also see that there just wasn't the support there, particularly as time went on. My own daughter had her own struggles. She's 18 now. She starts university soon. I'm really thrilled for her and her journey. But I could see that from my own lived experience that the support for children who didn't fit into the norm was really lacking. And over the years, I saw how we could meet that need. And it is lovely to be able to start a charity from scratch, really is. I mean, it's been a real gift because you get to choose the people that you work with. That's not something that many people do. I've seen people who have skills that I don't have, who are better than me, and got them all in the same team. And that's been really good. Team members who have been there, well, some right from the beginning and a lot for a very long time, because that's the way that we complement each other and see the strength.
Dream team.
Yeah.
And you have a community fridge.
We do indeed, yes. An area that maybe, setting up the charity, I never thought that we would be supporting families with food insecurity. But yeah, that's something that we do now. And we provide hot meals to children and young people as well when they come to Selfa in the school holidays and after school. So as we've grown, I think the support that we give to children and families has grown too.
So you're the leader of Selfa. How do you feel about that title? Are you comfortable with it?
I think I am now, but I'm going to be 50 next year. And I feel actually now like the planets have aligned a bit. And I feel like I can say I'm a good leader now. For a long time, I felt I wasn't, because I think I didn't have the kind of skills that I needed to be a leader. And a few years ago, I did a qualification in coaching and mentoring, my level 5, and that was really, really helpful. Just has helped me to become a better leader, a better supporter. And I always used to think that leading was, making sure that everything was comfortable and good, and that if people needed help, I could do things for them. Whereas now I realise that leadership is about sitting in that discomfort and letting people make their own choices and decisions, and creating that environment for people to bounce back, I suppose, from whenever things don't go so well. So I've learned a lot along the way, really, I'd say, Caroline, and still every day as I make mistakes. But part of being a good leader, I think, is owning those things and saying, yeah, I'll try and do better tomorrow.
And your early leadership qualities, how do you think they inform who you are and what you do today?
I like to describe myself as a servant leader, and that is someone who's there for the greater good and not for their own agenda. I do a lot of collaborative leadership work with my team as well, with some fantastic leaders at Selfa in every way. And I think it's Brené Brown who says leadership is just seeing the potential in other people and creating the culture that they can thrive. And I really do believe that. And nothing makes me happier than, like, a member of my team came into the office the other day and went, I'm a really good leader. And I was like, yeah, you are a really good leader. And to be able to own that. And I think that kind of goes against some of the stuff that I learned as a child about not having an ego and not being proud. And I suppose, that's very different to having self-esteem and belief in yourself, which I really try and emulate and nurture in others.
So Emma, it sounds to me like you're a very inclusive leader. What does that term mean to you and to your organisation?
For me, I think it's about seeing the good in people and what's strong rather than what's wrong. And I think that's particularly important whenever we're working with children and young people. The children and young people we work with at Selfa, quite often, they come with reams and reams of paperwork to say what's wrong with them, but nothing about what they're good at. And that's what we really try and work with. And I think with the team as well at Selfa, it's about playing to people's strengths. That's where the work begins. That's where the change happens. Or I remember my daughter was excluded from school the 3rd time, and sitting down with her and saying, what can we do that's good? And she said she wanted to do a sponsored walk. And, she did a sponsored walk for Selfa. And I think it was about 5 miles. It wasn't very far, but it was her sponsored walk and she was doing it. And we got her T-shirt and everything like that. And she achieved that walk. And I think even when things were really bad and really dark for her, we were able to create situations where she could succeed. And I think that's really important about Selfa, because we create opportunities for children to succeed. They come to us and it may be the first time that they've received a certificate or an award. Sometimes they leave us and the only things on their CV are the things that they've done with us, whether it's been supported volunteering or getting a Young Leaders Award. And I think that it's really important that we're all moving in the same direction, because sometimes I will see that even though I maybe don't personally think that it's a way we should be doing things, I trust that other people know better than me sometimes and know how things should be done operationally. And I think it's a case of getting on board with that and showing as a leader that actually I can listen to others and work collaboratively to move in the same direction as everyone. And I think that's really important with children and young people, that we all share that same vision as well. And I think our vision is a community where children and young people thrive and know that they belong. That has to be our ultimate goal. And if it's not taking us to that place, then we need to look at what we're doing and do it differently. So that's very much what inclusive leadership's about for me.
How do you deal with people who are maybe not happy with the decisions that you've made, both for them, but also for yourself?
I think I probably still struggle with that a little bit sometimes. I think when it's people who I really am close to and value their opinion, I can still find that hard. And part of that is sitting with the discomfort as well. Sometimes I have to be okay that people aren't going to like the decisions I've made. And someone once said to me that you could be the juiciest peach that there is, but there would still be someone out there who just does not like peaches. And I think that it's really important to remember that in the work that I do, and that it's never about me. And I think working with children and young people at Selfa, and also having my own children, I realise that it's about those boundaries that I create around myself, but also being nurturing and boundaried and getting that balance. And that can be hard. And I think that's really important about being a servant leader, because knowing that it is for the greater good of, well, basically that children and young people can thrive.
We learn a lot from children and young people, including our own. How have children helped you to challenge your own perspectives?
So I would say that starts very close to home. So with my own children, when my daughter was only 8 years old, she started to really struggle at school. She had about 3 exclusions within a period of months. And, emotionally, behaviourally, she was really finding things really hard. And I realised at that time that I needed to do something to support her. I used to joke and say, here I am running this children's charity and I don't know what to do with my own child. It was then that I looked into different ways of working and different ways of communicating, really, and having that belief that things could change. And I had to put on my armour and fight. And that's what I've done for children and young people at Selfa. I've shown up. I don't really work with children and young people directly that much anymore, because I've got staff who are far better at it than me. But I feel I've learned an awful lot from children and young people. I feel that they are my biggest teachers. And whenever people say to me, who inspires you and who do you look up to? I look up to all the children and young people in my life, whether it's my 2 kids or it's the young people at Selfa. And I think it's because of the challenge that they give me in a positive way more. I mean, there is the negative challenge there as well that I have to deal with. But it's the questions that they ask me. I work quite closely with our youth board, who are absolutely amazing group of individuals, but they'll quite often come to me and say things, like, well, why can't we do that? Or why does it have to be done that way? And quite often I'm stuck for words. I'm thinking, yeah, well, I could give you a whole load of nonsense as to why, or reasons why, and not always nonsense. It may be nonsense to them, but I could justify it. But actually, at the end of the day, it's about meeting their needs, and that really challenges my thinking. And I think it's quite good for me to say things like, oh, I hadn't thought of it in that way, or yeah, maybe I was wrong. And that's really humbling as well. But also it comes, a lot of growth comes from that as well.
Wonderful. And in our sector, our wonderful social sector, what do you think is missing and what could we be working on for the future?
So I think that there is an awful lot of good in our sector. And I think when things work well, it's because we work on a relational level. And I think that's something that we do really well. I think it's something Rank do really well, particularly. And I would love to see other organisations and funders follow that path, because I think we can really, really make change happen there. I think that there's a lot of work to be done around funding for charities as well. If you think, I mentioned our income was about $500,000 a year, and we have over 30 funders that we apply to get that money in, as well as donations and sometimes legacies. So it is a massive piece of work to get the funding in. And I would like to see funders fund the organisation and the work they do rather than small projects, because I think that's where sustainable change can happen. So I think that there's a lot that we can learn from working in different ways around how to support our sector. And then at the end of the day, we exist for the people that we support. So for us, it's the children and young people. And whenever we work to that model and funders work to that model, we work to that agenda and not our individual agendas.
Great advice. So core funding and collaboration among funders.
Yeah, you've hit it on the nose there.
We'll do our best. Thank you very much. Thanks, Emma. Thanks for listening to The Ripple Effect, brought to you by the Rank Foundation and Purposeful Marketing. This episode featured Emma Pears, founder and Chief Officer of Selfa Children's Charity and Rank Memorial Award winner. The producers were Cass Stenton, alongside Michaela Carmichael, Jane Morgan and James Shield, courtesy of the Feast Collective. Tune into The Ripple Effect